Hello, folks. This is Joe from My Geek Scene. I'm here at the Grand Rapids Comic Con with author supreme Gail Simone.
Hey, everybody.
Gail, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We've had a great couple days here at this convention. I've met some great new friends here and gotten to see some friends that I've known for some time.
Most excellent.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, she's a massively awesome comic book writer. She's wrote, and no, I'm not, this isn't hyperbole. I do mean this. She's wrote Clean Room, recently Domino, Birds of Prey, The Secret Six, Leaving and Surviving Megalopolis. Plenty of titles. Awesome stuff to go check out. So, I mentioned Secret Six. Do you have a favorite iteration of The Secret Six?
That is just such a hard question. It's like asking you what your favorite child is. Oh my gosh. I really love Villains United just because that was the first coming together of this series that we had, and it was with Dale Eaglesham, and it really got people's interest up, and I really feel honored and excited that I got to do that. So I guess if I was going to choose, it would be that one. But each one, I like the stories that we were telling at the time.
Okay. Why did you want to use Black Orchid for the Secret Six?
I didn't ultimately get to use her, but I did use her in an episode of the Brave and the Bold cartoon. I like the Black Orchid character. I like the mystery of her, and I think that would be really fun to be able to delve into. So someday maybe I'll get a chance.
Okay, because I had mentioned in the intro Clean Room, and from what I understand, you were researching cults for Clean Room. Were there any particular cults that you were researching? Like any standout groups?
It's kind of more of a lifetime thing for me because I grew up in the state of Oregon, and Oregon, for those of you who don't know, has the highest per capita of cults in the United States.
Yeah, I read that actually.
Yeah, so growing up there, you hear about these things, and you might be out at a grocery store or an event and see people that are dressed differently and know that they're part of one of these cults. And as a kid, you're kind of seeing this. And then as I grew up and started paying more attention and reading articles and reading about it, I just became interested in it. And then there came a point when I actually became a writer where cult survivors were actually coming to me and talking to me. This is prior to Clean Room. They were just, kind of, purging themselves of their experience. And I noticed that they all referred to themselves as survivors, and some of them, have various different things that they're dealing with as a result of surviving a cult. And so I listened intently to that, and I've been fascinated on how a cult starts up in the first place. So of course Scientology is something that I've been paying attention to, and as well as various other cults. But the main thing with me that intrigues me, and you see this all through Clean Room, is control. Who has it? Who wants it? Who gets it? Who do we give it to? How easily do we give it to them? And what is there? Are there personality similarities between people who give over their control and people who take control? And all that whole dynamic of control is the part that intrigues me about it.
Okay, I mean, I noticed a lot of the horror throughout that whole series because I read all 3 volumes that's been current, or season 1, as we put it. What was the most disturbing piece of art that Jon Davis-Hunt created for you?
Well, this book was really I had this book in the back of my mind for probably 10 years before I actually ever sat down to write a word of it.
Okay.
And we looked really hard for the perfect artist for it. And I was working with Shelley Bond, and we were, reaching out to artists, and they were sending in samples and all this. We took a long time. And when I first had sent in the description of Astrid, I had her with dark hair. People were starting to ask me questions like, why is it that you only write redheaded female characters? And I was like, is it because you have red hair? And I would always say, no, I can't help it if the best badass female characters have red hair. I didn't create that. But now I was creating one. So I thought, okay, we'll make her brunette. And then when John's art came in, she was a redhead with the white streak, and she didn't quite look like I had imagined her, but when I saw that, I knew that that was Astrid and that he was correct. And so we, asked him if he was interested in doing this series, and he was, and he just had so much energy and excitement for this project, and he loved the fact that he got to design the clean room and design the characters and all of that. But then it came, and he just, every time he'd email me and say, "Oh man, I can't believe I get to draw this. This is going to be amazing." And then it came to the scenes with the Pony Man, and
that caught me off guard.
Yeah. And it's very, very disturbing, and it's one of those pieces of the script that I didn't turn that script in until well past I had finished it, because I felt so bad about asking somebody to draw this that I was just like, I don't want to ruin my relationship with Jon. This is just too much. How can I ask someone to do this? And finally, Shelley, the editor, was like, we really need to get this going. And so I turned it in and I said, please tell me if it's too much. And everybody, of course, read it and had nightmares, and we were all freaked out. And I scared myself, which isn't easy to do. But then Jon's response was, "Oh my God, I get to draw this." And so he drew it, and he made it amazing and terrifying and everything that it needed to be. And so that was kind of a good lesson for me, in that don't just assume that somebody's not going to be willing to do something just because it hasn't been done before. Sometimes that excites people. And Jon did an amazing job, and I was really fortunate to have him on that book.
So I know that you're working on plenty of things, and that Vertigo had closed down officially. But will that series be coming back? Because I know it was under the Vertigo house. Imprint.
Right. The series will be coming back. I do own it, and I have the rights to it. Right now, it's being optioned.
Okay.
So I'm, the first issue of the next run is already half drawn even, but we're just kind of waiting to find out where its home is going to be, where the best place to put it is.
So when you say an option, are we talking like Netflix series, potential movie?
We're talking it's been optioned, and that's really all I can say.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That is completely fair. So what were your thoughts on Vertigo closing down? I was disappointed by that, because I've read plenty of awesome titles throughout the year. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's very disappointing. It's something that, during a time in my life, I read, mostly Vertigo titles. So, and it was targeted towards an audience that wasn't necessarily a superhero type audience, and it had a European flair, and there were all these things about it that we hadn't really seen much of before in the States. And I loved all that, and I loved having the choice of having more adult material. It didn't have to be appropriate for all ages, for instance, or be appropriate at least for a mainstream audience, and I love that. And we do have other imprints that do that now, and DC is going to do it under the Black label. So we'll see how it goes. But of course, it's disappointing to see that something like that is no longer. But somehow it kind of fell off the radar, I think, for people who were doing the purchasing. And so it's time to, the main goal is to get these great stories out to as many people as possible. So it's time to figure out a way to do that.
Were there any particular series that resonated with you?
There were a lot. Hellblazer, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. I read Preacher. I mean, there were just so many of them. Black Orchid, Sandman, Watchmen, even though it's not my favorite thing, which I know is kind of scandalous thing to say being in the industry. But
absolutely not.
But, I definitely did read it, and it was interesting to me at the time. So I think that, having a place for those books, those types of books to exist is extremely important. So I don't want to see the industry lose that.
Well, I'm actually proud to say that I recently, earlier this year, purchased all 3 omnibuses of the Sandman collection. So.
Wow, I'm so jealous right now.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, come on. I'm pretty sure you could write up to Neil. I'm like, can I please get some copies of this? He's like, sure, why not? I mean, yeah, because I just decided to start collecting comic books to one, build up my credit score, because for some reason, after not being in debt for 5 years, my credit score went from great to good because I paid everything off on time. And I was like, you're punishing me for being responsible with my money. Yeah, pretty much. I was like, all right, fine. Just give me a credit card with like a $1,500 limit through the bank.
And fill it with Sandman omnibuses. That's amazing.
No, I'll buy comic books. So including like pre-orders into next year, I ordered over $4,000 worth of comic books, and I have 2 nice shelves full of great comics.
Yeah, wow, that is incredible.
No, the Salmon omnibuses, each of them were like, because they normally retail for $150 a piece. I got them for like around $80 a piece.
Whoa, so smart shopping too.
I try to be. So I wanted to learn more about you as a person. You mentioned that you would have liked to collaborate with David Bowie. Did you have anything in mind particularly?
I don't think I have a particular thing in mind. It would be one of those situations if something like that ever would have happened, I probably would have taken his lead, But the thing about David Bowie is, and being the trailblazer that he was, I had never really heard of him up until high school when I met my now husband. And I grew up in a family where the music that was listened to was like either standard radio stuff, or my mom liked Elvis Presley, and she liked Tina Turner, and some of the things she liked I did like too, but they weren't mine. They weren't inspiring to me. And the first time when my now husband Scott gave me 3 albums when we were in high school, and one was David Bowie's Station to Station, and the other was a Peter Gabriel album, the one that had Biko on it and Intruder, and then the other one was the New Age Split Ends album. And because I'm such a word person, I've always been word oriented. Even as a little kid, I spoke really young, and I read really young, and told stories really young. The lyrics really inspired me, and the emotion at which they were sung, and the stories they were telling, and the messages they were getting across is what blew my mind. And then I realized, I actually do really like music. I just like this other type of music than what I had been exposed to. And then I became a huge fan of Kate Bush, and the list goes on, but they were all more alternative kind of musicians and bands.
I know it's an open-ended question, but for what albums would you recommend, or albums or songs by David Bowie would you recommend for new fans? Because I was starting to do some research while I was listening to some David Bowie in preparation for this interview that we're doing, and I listened to the Ziggy Stardust album. And I enjoyed the whole thing, and back in the day when he released it, the collaboration with Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, I liked I'm Afraid of Americans and stuff like that. And it also blew my mind that he was the one behind All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I actually tracked down a version where David Bowie's actually singing part of that song. But were there any new songs, not any new songs, any songs or albums that you would recommend for David Bowie?
Well, what comes to mind, everybody has different tastes, but if I take a look at our son, who's a millennial, there are a few things that all 3 of us like, my husband, myself, and him, and they're David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Johnny Cash. It's like
Nice.
a weird collection, right? So that's what I think about is what did he like? What grabbed our son at first to like something that, because you never like your parents' music. That's so not cool.
I'm gonna say
until you're older. Until you're older, usually. And so, because you want to rebel and have your own thing. And in fact, Dakota played that game with me all through high school, where he'd try to find the thing that I would hate that he liked. And he just never succeeded. And because he'd like all these Japanese rock, glam rock bands and stuff. And I'd listen to him and I go, I really think that's pretty cool. And so instead of getting me upset and him rebelling, we sort of bonded and kind of learned what he liked and stuff. But Heroes was the first David Bowie song that really reached out and grabbed him. So I would definitely, most people probably by now have heard that, but I think for a new David Bowie listener, that one, especially now, I think it's just such an important song. I don't think that lyrically, especially, it's going to ever go out and lose its meaning.
All right. Have you ever seen him in concert?
No. Unfortunately not. No, I'm from a little tiny town. I don't think I saw my first live concert till I was in my 30s.
What was your first live concert?
I think it was The Who.
Nice. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good first
It was
concert.
pretty great. That was my first big one. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's a good start. I would not. Yeah, not that you're complaining, but no one can complain about that one. So, have you read Neil Gaiman's tribute, The Return of the Thin White Duke?
I haven't. I want to get to that though, but I haven't had a chance to.
It's not a bad story.
Okay.
Not a bad story. I recently
I'll
read
take
it.
your recommendation.
Well, actually, were there any other musicians that had a huge impact on you?
Well, like I said, Kate Bush did. She started when she was 16. I graduated from high school when I was 16. I knew that I wanted to be a writer from a super young age, and everybody, I wouldn't say they discouraged me, but it was more things like, okay, that's really great, but you'll never earn a living doing it, or, that's really great, but the only thing that makes sense is to be a journalist, and nothing wrong with all those things, but that's not where my heart or my talents were ever going to be. And so Kate Bush, she just really didn't care what people said about her. She didn't seem to, she did what she wanted to do the way she wanted to do it when she wanted to do it. And I thought that was so kick-ass. And she's so brilliant and talented that I was like, oh, she's amazing.
Have you had the opportunity to see her in concert?
No.
Okay, so I take it not a lot of cool things come to your side of town.
No, I have. I've seen The Who. I've seen Alice Cooper. I've seen Death Cab for Cutie. I've seen Roger Daltrey solo.
Nice.
I've seen pieces of bands that, would come and go here and there, but I haven't really had a chance to see many huge concerts. We'd have to drive to Seattle, or Portland maybe.
Well, don't feel so bad, because honestly, like, Grand Rapids and, well, Michigan in general, like, the bands that I want to see, they generally, like, unless they're going to Canada, they're not going to go up into the state and then back down. So they just usually skip us over, because there's been quite a few concerts that I've wanted to see and no Michigan dates whatsoever.
Yeah, I have good friends in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and they're always going to concerts, and they get all the great concerts there. I'm like, how do you guys get the great concerts down there and we don't get them where I live?
It's sad. So, are you a fan of Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood?
I don't know that I would say I'm like a fan, but I like the idea of having protest music that's danceable. That's something about that just is really appealing to me, and I like that sound. But I just think that would reflect the characters that were wearing the T-shirts in my comics more than me myself.
Yeah, because that did catch me off guard, because I asked that because I saw a bystander with a Relax shirt show up in the first issue of Clean Room, and then Ko Akari had a shirt that said Swamp Thing says Relax in the arc where she met Wonder Woman on Kadaria.
Right.
So I was like, because I remember reading that Wonder Woman comic first, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, and then I forgot about that, and then I saw Clean Room. I was like, there's a connection there.
What's the deal with
I
that?
actually had to go, since I'd already returned that book to the library, I had to go track down. I was like, I know it says Relax in one of these comics, and I was happy to find that out. So I was like, did you plant that seed? I was just wondering if you were just a huge Frankie Goes to Hollywood fan all this time. So one of the comic series, creator-owned comic series that you did that I read and I enjoyed was Crosswinds. So I know that you did the first volume, and I'm just wondering, will you continue the story of Cason and Juniper when Crosswind returns, or will two other people be the center of a new story?
Okay, so without giving away too much, Cason and Juniper will always be part of Crosswind.
Okay.
But other crosses will happen, and perhaps other viziers will appear as well.
Oh, okay. Nice. I will not dive into that anymore, I promise. And while doing research into that, I noticed that a song was created for it by Rachel Miller. How did that collaboration happen, or was that something that she did independently and was like, hey, I did this awesome thing, go check it out?
No, we had met a couple years before, and she had liked reading my comics. I had seen, she'd sent me some links to some of her music that she did, and she's so talented. And when we were doing Clean Room, I wanted kind of this really new punk kind of sound for Crosswind. I meant not Clean Room, for Crosswind. And she was the first name that came to mind. I knew that she could do it, and she just really got the tone and everything perfectly that we wanted. And she's now an instructor at one of those School of Rocks type things in New York. Yeah, she's amazing, and her dad play music together sometimes too, and it's the most amazing thing ever.
Most excellent.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool here. So I wanted to learn this about you. Do you read manga or watch anime? Because the only thing I could find connecting you to either one of them was, like, I believe you had contributed, you were involved with the Attack on Titan anthology.
Right. I do read and I do watch those things. I haven't written them, except for Attack on Titan, I believe. But, my son growing up was a huge manga fan, so I was buying it. It was around the house all the time, and there were a few things I'd pick up, and I really liked some things in particular. I really liked Monster, and I really like Tomie and Uzumaki, and
By Junji Ito?
Yeah, by Junji Ito. And so I'm a fan of the format, and I think that some of the best horror comics actually are manga. And I just marvel every time I read one at how they take something that seems so not scary and are able to make it absolutely horrifying. And I like the format a lot. And what I like about manga is that the subject matter is limitless, and they will take things down, and a lot of them will just get down to microscopic levels on it. It's not like you don't see as condensed of stories like you see in American comics. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You just get hit the major beats in American comics a lot, and with manga it just seems a lot more stretched out. And
the thing I like about
detailed.
manga is, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, that's okay.
The thing I like about manga is generally the artist and the author are the same person, and then they'll just continue that story. Like a series that I enjoyed was Naruto. It had 700 chapters, ran for 15 years, and I probably own all 72 volumes of that series, all by one person. Obviously, he had assistants helping with like shading in the background once he really got it rolling, but the fact that he would be able to continue a whole story for 15 years on a week-by-week basis is just amazing.
Well, it's amazing to think that someone could make that their career and earn enough money to live well and everything and be able to focus on just the one thing. That is very, I don't know that there's very few people in the United States that could do that. There are some, but there's very few.
Yeah, there's an author named, oh my goodness. I forgot his name. The guy who created Berserk, he's been working on that for Kentaro Miura. He's been working on that for 30 years.
That's amazing.
Not on a weekly basis. Like, his artwork is so dense and detailed that it's been times that he's taken a year between chapters and stuff like that, and he still hasn't finished it. But I'm like, I'm in this for the long run. Please do not pass away, because he's like in his 50s now, but from what I understand, he gets up and works on the comic for 16 hours a day and goes back to sleep. And it's just, it's an amazing story. The artwork,
it's mind-blowing.
and it's got a lot of horror into it as well. So I was happy to find this out about you. You wrote a lot of jokes for the Rifftrax Karate Cop movie. Do you like B movies?
It depends on the B movie, whether I'm going to like it or not. Like, if I was going to watch Karate Cop for my own enjoyment and not be writing jokes and making fun of it, probably wouldn't enjoy it. But I totally enjoyed watching it and making jokes.
Okay, because I was just wondering, like, if you would dive into B movies. Because from what I understand, you once said in an interview that you have a hard time enjoying movies because you're always deconstructing them.
Yes.
So, and I was just wondering, did that apply to movies that you know are going to be terrible when you're going into it and stuff like that?
When there's a B movie that I like, it's usually going to be a really great story, but just was done on a lower budget.
Okay.
Possibly. And I like B horror movies fine a lot of times, depending on the quality, but I don't enjoy just watching things that are bad just for the sake of it, unless it's something like The Room or, what was the one with the birds that was so bad? Birdemic. Some people would watch that over and over again. I don't need to do that, but it was fun to kind of watch that the first time and go, what were they thinking?
So did you dive into any of the Troma films?
I have never really grabbed onto the Troma films.
That's
to
fair.
be able to watch too many of those.
So we're actually winding down in this interview. Thoughts on the upcoming Birds of Prey movie?
Well, thought number one is please make it excellent so that we can have more, for one. And I really have faith that the team that's on it, that it will be excellent. I don't have too much inside information on it compared to what other people have. But I like the cast. I love Margot Robbie, and Journey Smollett's great. The whole entire cast I think is amazing. The people behind the scenes for it are really talented. The scriptwriter, the the director. So I'm super hopeful that we're going to have a great movie, and I know that it's not going to be like anything we've seen before, and I'm very excited and intrigued by that.
And from what I understand, well, at least I saw it on Amazon, they're releasing an omnibus of your run on Wonder Woman.
Yes, I'm so excited. I love omnibuses. I've had tons and tons of trades and collections and stuff that have been put out of my work, but this and the Red Sonja omnibus will be my only omnibuses so far, and
It's very exciting.
So excited. They both look beautiful.
Oh, look at you with the insight scoop.
Yes.
Well, at least I would hope so.
Yeah, they both look beautiful and amazing, so I'm really excited for those to come out.
All right. Final 3 questions. What's new that you would like to talk about that you're allowed to promote?
Well, 7 Days just came out. The number 1 just came out in October, and that's something that I and a whole team of people have been working on for a year and a half now. And the first one came out, and it's absolutely gorgeous. We're really proud of the story and the characters as they come together. So I'm hoping that people will check that out. Number 2 comes out shortly here in November, so you'd be getting in right at the beginning. You don't need to know anything, and it's a huge story where a superior being comes down to Earth and tells the entire world that his planet's dead, he's taking ours, he's going to kill every living thing on it, but he's not a complete monster. We have 7 days to say our goodbyes and do what we're going to do, and then he's annihilating every living thing.
Okay.
So each issue is 1 day in those 7 days, so it's 7 issues.
Interesting.
It's really, and these characters, Lionforge hired me to be the architect of their superhero universe.
All right.
So this is the first big thing that we're doing as we're kind of pushing a little bit of a reset button on their universe. And these characters feel very modern. They are fresh, and we are super proud. We've got female astronauts. We've got superheroes with Down syndrome. We have people all over the globe. It's a global event that happened to created enhanced people, so we're not limited like to Manhattan or to one particular location on the globe, and I'm super excited about how that's looking. I'm also doing a tie-in comic book stories with a Dungeons and Dragons style module called Humblewood, which is amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. They did this Kickstarter, and they asked for $30,000 to develop this module, and they got over $1 million because it's so good. And they've created this world, and it has politics and its own religion and creation myths, and I'm doing the comics that tell the stories that happen in this world, and I'm super excited about that. I'm also doing a lot of flash stories for DC right now, particularly for the 100-page giants for Walmart that they will print and put in the direct market 2 weeks after they get into the Walmarts. And I'm still doing Death-Defying Devil for Dynamite. I am developing Crosswind for television along with a team of people, and consulting on a film. I'm just doing all kinds of things right now in lots of different mediums, and it's super exciting to be in this place right now.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If people wanted to find you more online, where could they go?
The best place is at Gail Simone on Twitter. I have a Facebook as well, but Twitter is just kind of where all the action's happening mostly.
And final question, what would you like to say to all your fans throughout the years?
Oh my goodness. Just thank you so much for being part of this comic book community, being part of these stories, supporting them, speaking up, being a great source of inspiration and energy for us. Thank you to everybody.
All right, well, Gail, I would like to say thank you and also congratulations. You were my 200th interview.
Wow.
And I truly appreciate it. So,
congratulations to you, too.
Oh, thank you. Oh, shucks, I try. Well, thank you for this interview. Folks, this is Joe from My Geek Scene. I'm here with Gail Simone at the Grand Rapids Comic Con. Take it easy.
Hey.